I mean, low key, I find it's roasting my exes a lot when I
Yeah.
when I open the
Oh my
app.
God, it's been roasting me though. It's like, why are you
Really?
delusional? I'm like, what? I just woke up. Like, I don't know what your problem is. But you
Wait,
have
so you're on it too?
yeah, I have to be on it because for client work and for other people, I want to see what it's saying for
Yeah.
compatibility and how it reads things. So a lot of people only have CoStar. So it's like their
Yeah.
only,
I mean, it's just I mean, like, I can never remember my chart. You plug the
it's
numbers
pretty
in
easy to
and it.
remember because it's Leo down. I saw your chart and I was like, correct. But your
Okay.
main placement is Cancer. So there is some water there, but I was like, wow, okay.
And this is what I feel my problem is. This is I'm very eager to know what you think about this because I, as a Leo with so much Leo in my chart, have found that my compatibility with water signs generally, but Cancers in particular, Cancer men in particular, is non-existent. And I do wonder if that Cancer in my chart is creating some kind of dissonance, or if I need to embrace some aspect of my personality that I don't really identify with because I have some sort of like hostility toward
Yeah.
Cancerian men.
Well, you also have so much Cancer energy in you that you might need something else to create complementary balance. Like I think everything in astrology with as it pertains to synastry and composite stuff is like harmony and tension. Like you want both. Like squares, you have a lot, you and I have a lot of natal squares, and a lot of astrologers view squares as just difficult, but squares are the one signature that creates growth, right? Because tension creates growth. So if like you and I are very different, there's a lot more probability that we'll challenge each other in ways that if we are too similar, there can almost be like an impasse with charts where there's so much harmony that I think what happens, I don't know if you have friends or exes like this, where you start to take a lot for granted because there's such a kind of, and I'm someone who's attracted to difference, so I don't have a lot of that in my past, but I've had, you know, friendships where it's like we're taking a lot for granted because we're so similar. Whereas people who I'm so different, I think I like it because I have to like explain myself so much more.
I would say I am attracted to difference,
Yeah.
but also like I have no fire sign friends. I enjoy fire signs a great deal. And there was a point in my life where I felt like I had hacked my romantic life by starting to date fire signs. And I found them to be so easy and fun and comparatively expressive and energetically similar to me that I was like, what? Why was I ever wasting my time before? This is fantastic. I love this. And then I did a Sagittarian and then an Aries and a Leo back to back to back.
Wow.
And I've had to
Data
revise.
collection.
I mean, I think that's why I love astrology because there is this very like empirical. This is like
Yeah,
people are going to take this and
aspect.
think that this is like contradictory, but yeah, there's this empirical aspect where I'll be asking folks about themselves. You know, I'll ask someone what their sign is at a party, and they'll say guess, and I'm asking them questions about themselves, and I can see that for them, it's like a game of is astrology real? Because if I get it wrong, it's not. But for me, it's like I'm not an expert, but I would like to know how you self-report and how you self-identify. And regardless of this, if whether this gels with my prediction of what you are, what you've said, I'm logging. And so that
Yeah.
hopefully next time my predictions are more accurate. And it's
I
also
love
just a nice way
that.
to learn about you,
I feel like
you
you'd be
know?
a really gifted astrologer because I think a simple way to talk about the gift of astrology is pattern recognition. And I think this is something that's a through line in a lot of like, there's so many like gotcha, you know, folks who are always trying to, I mean, skeptics who are always trying to find the like the holes in astrology, not as a pseudoscience, which I was formerly that person. So I totally understand.
Oh,
And I think especially if
interesting.
you, yeah, if your only exposure to astrology is like horoscopes and like kind of magazine astrology, some people that's their gateway to astrology and they love it. You know, and then other people, it's a big eye roll because I think in the United States, we have such an obsession with categorizing and trying to create like neat identities to organize complexity and kind of like, yeah, I think we're afraid of nuance. And so it's easy to say like you're just such a Scorpio or to use astrology to kind of
Yeah.
I think you have to be careful when you're meeting someone, whether they're into astrology or not, and if they're a complete stranger, using it to shortcut curiosity and tell someone about themselves, because I feel like that's the quickest way to lose somebody.
You're so right. I had like, it's like a meme at this point that a man is on a date. It's very gendered, obviously, but a man is on a date and a woman asks a sign and, like text your mom for your birthday or for your birth time. And it's like an ick and he's upset about it. And I in my experience, a lot of, again, men, sorry, in particular, get very hostile about it because it does, my interpretation of their emotional reaction is that they do think it's reductive. And they have encountered folks who have dismissed them on account of whatever their sign is. I would like to say that despite me saying I have a little bit of a bias against water sign males, it didn't stop me from being in a relationship with a Pisces for the last 2.5 years. Now, one might argue I should have trusted my better judgment.
Oh, Pisces fan. Oh. I know. I mean, I've never been in a serious relationship with a Pisces man, but I do love Pisces placements for us specifically as Taurus risings.
Really? Wait,
One thing I was going to say quickly on that, though, is like I think there's like multiple things going on there. I also think that astrology and mystical sciences are encoded as female knowledge. And so I do think there's also like a cultural emotional reaction that that's learned, that men that I think is perpetuated through the memes, which like I'm super bro-y. I find all of that funny, but I think we need to be a little careful because I think that it's like we're kind of socializing like men to be really skeptical of something that I find men are extremely open towards. And like I think they are, again, it depends on how you're framing it and contextualizing it. If you're leading with curiosity and you're opening the door for these things to be conversational and kind of exploratory versus definitive and deterministic. But I also think it's good to challenge ourselves and like our male friends for just inheriting a skepticism that's essentially like gendered knowledge, right? There's like the scientific method is like encoded as like true and as masculine empirical knowledge. And then, a lot of these things like astrology and tarot are read as like female language, like knowledge bases. And I think that's worth investigating, to all of us investigating that culturally, because I think that's sad. That we're like, that's just emotional, woo-woo, witchy. And it's like, wow, that's really not true. That's just not true. That's not the history of it at all. So I think for me, it's a little layered.
I also don't mind a little witchiness and threw on some hoops and a dark purple lip because I
know
wanted
you look
to.
great, as always. I was like, oh, of course she's a Venus ruled person, like, because you're always so beautiful and your space.
Oh, that's okay. I'm so curious. I want to hear all about this. We might have to include some of this intro because we got right into it, but I want to introduce you, Isa Nakazawa. You are a Oakland-based writer, producer, podcaster, and obviously astrologer. I am a huge fan of your show, Stars and Stars with Isa. I am obsessed. You'll probably hear me recount tidbits from other episodes and other readings that you've done throughout this because one, just on a purely aesthetic level, I find your voice to be so soothing and lovely to listen to. When I listen to a lot of podcasts that are political and the content puts me on edge and the presentation puts me on edge, yours is the exact opposite. So it is a thrill for me to be able to talk to you today here on Bad Faith. Welcome.
I'm so honored and excited. And when you reached out, I was like, wait, this is amazing. Because you never know who's listening. I'm sure you relate to this, but podcasting is quite an intimate format. And it's just us and the conversations we're having with our guests. And then we release it into the world and we don't necessarily know who's listening on the other end. And I'm such a fan of you and your amazing work too. So it's really an honor to be on here. I was like, wow, okay. I really tried to prepare. And my mom is visiting. My mom also loves your work. So she's in the background listening.
Hi, Mom. So
she can't hear you, but
to have you kind of like spiritually in the room on a vibe-based level.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's with us.
So we alluded to a little bit of this already, but you said you were a skeptic at first, which makes me even more curious to ask the question of how you got into this and started doing astrological readings.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot because I try and be really honest about my origin story with astrology. And it's funny because I didn't know anything about astrology at one point in my life, and it's so on the nose for my chart. So there is retrospective humor in that. I have a very similar chart to Carl Sagan, who, of course, was an astrophysicist and someone who gives us really beautiful language about how the cosmos reside within us in a very literal way, that we're made of star stuff like the nitrogen and the DNA. We can quote him later, but I think I was someone who was always fascinated by space and the solar system. But I think I was really worried that astrology at the time, I'm about to be 39 for context for listeners. So there was also this kind of boom, and I forget what the year exactly was, with personality tests. And then kind of astrology re-entering the zeitgeist. And I started to get really concerned about the ways in which these systems could be used to obscure power. And for context, growing up, I was politicized at a young age, which just means I was politically active at 10, 11 years old. Grew up in the East Coast, and I was part of a lot of the I'm a 9/11 baby. I grew up having to navigate the war in Iraq. And so I was very much an anti-war. I was going to Noam Chomsky lectures. I was doing Howard Zinn camps. Howard Zinn, who was, when I was 13, was kind of politicizing me around freeing Palestine. And so I have that background, which I think is important to name, that I was someone who was deeply interested in how do we navigate the inherited identities that really require strategic kind of acknowledgement of privilege and power, so that we can build movements that confront power, but then also, of course, this is where astrology comes in, that also then can create new worlds, new institutions, and new ways of thinking. And at the time, activism was kind of, the spaces that I was navigating weren't really answering that later question of what happens when we win. And so then I started going, it's always really hard to answer these questions. Brevity is not my gift.
We have time. If you have time, we have time.
But fast forwarding, then, eventually I was 17, 18. I was going on political delegations to Oaxaca to learn from the Zapatistas. That was really, really, really huge for me because they have a lot of cosmology. And so I was suddenly confronted with resistance movements that had different ways of understanding what resistance even looked like, which included kind of mythic storytelling about who we were. And they don't start that story at being captured or at enslavement or at oppression. And so that was kind of expanding to me. I was like, oh, where does our story begin? And where is the agency in starting and authoring that story? And then how does that then create a completely different relationship to the future? So that seed kind of started getting planted in me at 18, where I was like, wow, okay, I'm learning outside of the US from these kind of leftist movements that have had a completely different paradigm instead of philosophical underpinnings, which in the US, sometimes in our activist movements, we don't ask the bigger philosophical questions. What does it mean to be human? What is our definition of justice? But not just our everyday definition of justice, but what happens when we're not going to win in this lifetime? What is the bigger arc?
Yeah.
So by the time a little bit before COVID hit, I'm really curious. I'm a curious, generous skeptic. So I'm the type of person who, when I'm skeptical, I want to understand the thing that I'm skeptical about. I don't want to just leave it at a knee-jerk reaction. And so I started to study it, and I started to pick up books like Ancient Astrology by Demetra George, who's one of the biggest names in astrology and teachers. And I started to be so compelled and fascinated, and I always use the word enchanted, by how astrology is the confluence of astronomy and mythology and archetypal depth psychology. And I was just blown away by how old it is and how it's been practiced all over the world since, the beginning of time. And it just really felt really intellectually rigorous, and it demanded so much of me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I only know it. I've been introduced to it in the most reductive form. But that's not actually, and it's still fun. I think that can be really fun. I think it can be a both and. But I was really blown away by this is a whole field of scholarship, and I'm super nerdy. So I think I just fell into it and I became really obsessed. You can become quickly obsessed because it's a very dense symbolic language. So it takes you years. It honestly takes you a lifetime to really be a master. I think it could easily take you 80 years.
So I am anticipating the questions of the audience.
Oh, yeah.
I did one other astrology episode before, and there was a little mini rebellion in the comment section on Patreon.
Oh
Some
my
people
gosh,
loved
I
it.
welcome.
Some people were, had thoughts, feelings, and questions. So I'm trying to hear it through a more skeptical lens, and I'm gonna ask you, when you say it's sort of rigorous and that we've only been exposed to a very superficial version, help us better understand the rigor. And even more pointedly, to someone who sees this as sort of kind of an abstract mysticism that has that's pseudoscientific, how can we be evoking Carl Sagan? How can we be evoking a kind of rigor when it seems from the outside, at least from our superficial understanding of it, that there's no there. How can, in the simplest terms, the placement of the stars in the sky when you're born have any bearing on who you are as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I love this question, and there's so many places we can take it. I mean, I do think, first of all, a lot of astrologers would argue, first of all, that astrology is about pattern recognition, and it's more interested in fields of possibility than determinism. So I just want to start there, that I think sometimes the objections are not even what astrologers are trying to take on, right? Like, we're interested in studying patterns of moments where the movements or the kind of positions of the sky have actually aligned with major cultural shifts. And so I think that that's also important to say, first of all, that like astrologers are not usually saying like this is a certainty, or they're not necessarily interested in predicting futures. So I think that's a good place to start. And there's a really interesting piece of history that I did want to share to ground it too. And Carl Sagan, in the middle of the 1970s, there was a manifesto going around called Objections to Astrology, and he was asked to endorse it. And he thought about it because he was a skeptic. But what he thought was interesting is this obsession with arguing against there being no objective or empirical mechanism for astrology. And he often emphasized that just because we currently don't know how something might work, it doesn't automatically mean its claims are false. And he uses the example of continental drift. And so he used a lot of examples from his own field when there wasn't actually a known mechanism that was proven later. And so I think it's also important to take notes from someone like Carl Sagan, who was really just a lover of astronomy, who was saying, this is also something we falsely apply to astrology or to these kind of like symbolic languages where we're trying to say like that doesn't make sense. Like there's no mechanisms. Like, well, there's not a lot of mechanisms for other things too. And astronomy and astrology at one point in history were the same. That kind of distinction came later. And I think because it was, the study of the celestial movements, and it's more about, I think also from Carl Jung's perspective, who was used astrology a lot in his own, which was a huge risk for him to come out and say he used birth charts in his practice. Like, I think that was a major risk for him. But I think Carl Jung is a good example too, where, I also think it's helpful to think about astrology and the birth chart in particular as mapping a psyche. And there is, I think, a level of suspension of disbelief required. Like, I think we can talk about the moon as the closest celestial body to Earth, and we know its effects, scientifically on tides and on harvests and on mating patterns. And I think a lot of people, I don't really know many people who like debate me when it comes to like the moon's effects. But as we know, astrology also deals with outer planets, and a lot of outer planets like Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, they weren't even discovered till later because we needed telescopes to see them. And so they're not included in the traditional solar system rulership of astrology, right? So there's an undeniable relationship between astronomy and astrology, but I'm not the type of person who's going to really play in the like empirical playground because, Saturn and Pluto, it's much harder to make like an empirical argument about that mechanism. And I think I'm of the lineage of astrologers that are more interested in, first of all, I am always blown away by my own observation with how the patterns just, they become really loud. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's like, I would love to continue to be like surprised in the reverse, where there's like absolutely no correlation. And I'm not someone who's like, I don't know what that psychological term is, where someone's always trying, like confirmation bias.
Sure.
I'm not someone who's always trying to confirm the thing that I believe to be true. I'm almost the opposite. So I mean, it's hard to nail this one because but
no, you're nailing it. And the way I'm eating this up, because I use that's the exact explanation that I've always offered, that I was a history of science major. I am not, I don't know, I'm not a flake. I'm not especially like,
neither am I.
I wish I were more spiritual, to be honest, but I'm not especially a spiritual but to me, it really is, there have been centuries of scientific discovery that were preceded by centuries of coming up with feeling like something was going on, but having to come up with mythology to explain the world around us, obviously, right? And at some point, it's, Apollo's pulling the sun across the sky, and then we figure it out. So the fact of us not, the fact of us not knowing today what might be a empirical basis for some of our observed realities does not preclude for me the value of studying astrology. And moreover, the point that you made about the moon is one that I make all the time as someone who also studied.
The moon be working overtime for us.
Overtime. Because I'm like, how can you understand the effect that the moon is having on the tides? And how can you, as someone who half of our undergraduate classes were in biology and took a lot of, reproductive biology classes, how can you understand the delicacy of how an embryo develops from like a strip of cells that becomes your spine that's called the chordata, and hormones are migrating away from the starting point. And if they get this far, it's an elbow. And if it's this far, it's a wrist. And if it's this far, it's a fingertip. And understanding the complexity of how the brain is developing in that context, and not believe or not anticipate that it might be perfectly plausible that, magnetic waves and all kinds of forces in the world that are observable and those that we don't yet understand might have an effect on your brain development and the kind of personality that emerges as well. So that's all to say thank you for giving some official.
I will also, I think this because of this podcast in particular, I was thinking of also how it's interesting that now in the current zeitgeist, astrology is seen as really queer and really like lefty or like liberal. I don't know how people, but everything in America is like categorized. But it's interesting because Nancy Reagan was like a known example. I mean, there's some lore around Richard Nixon too, but how they both used Jeannie Dixon as to consult astrologers during the White House to make decisions, because there's a lot of timing techniques in astrology. So all to say, and also astrology was used very much in the Roman Empire. And so it's also astrology, I just want to say, is also like neutral. Like, I think that not neutral, but the idea that it has just been this like woo-woo liberal. It's like, I mean, Nancy Reagan used it. So that's wild. And also the fact that it was used in like the courts in the Roman Empire. Like, I mean, I think it's important. And it was important for me to understand this is not new. That's all I'm trying to say here. It's like, this is not like a new thing. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of people, the Reagan example is more, there's a lot of people using it that are not being public about it. So I think there's just, I think the skepticism thing's interesting to me, because I'm like, this is not some new stuff, y'all. Like, this has been used forever. And I do think it's almost like a philosophical question of like, I think there's something really bizarre to me, just as Issa Nakazawa, to assume that there's no correlation between us and the cosmos. Like, that to me is a little bit harder of an argument to believe in.
Yeah. Also, the way I can name a Gemini within moments of meeting one defies logic. Like, it cannot be random. I'm sorry. I can't do it with everyone.
This is me every day.
Is it with Geminis with you also? Is there another sign that you're, or maybe you're good at identifying?
Oh, no, it's everything. I mean, Geminis is a hilarious example because, that they're usually communicators. And I think for me, it's usually like what people end up doing with their life is so on the nose. But with my show and with client work, I'm always like, this can't be this literal. Like, it can't, surely there's some complexity afoot. You know?
See, that's why we logged on and you immediately read me like, oh girl.
I know,
all
like,
the way down.
the two of us, like, yeah. I mean, that's again the thing I always tell my best friends and my family. I'm like, I just can't get over it. Like, I just want one day for it to be completely disproven for myself just because I think it's funny. But I don't know.
And
that's
I found when I'm really off base with someone, I've changed how I ask people questions about themselves.
Okay.
I used to ask, are you X? Are you organized? Are you,
Got it.
Now I ask them, do your friends describe you as organized?
Ooh.
Because some people are bad self-reporters, and some signs,
Terrible.
like earth signs, who are really hard on themselves, will not see them as having the quality that they clearly have because they don't think they're organized enough. They don't think they're together enough.
That's so true. Oh my gosh, you're good at this. See, that's the precision we need. That's really true. People are terrible at self-reporting.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you before I'm trying to resist what perhaps is a Leo tendency toward self-obsession. Before I ask you more about my own sign and what your thoughts were, you alluded to, you mentioned Nancy Reagan using astrology, that the Romans using astrology. My understanding is that it's still really important in India in terms of like matchmaking and timing of weddings and things like that. Okay, I am curious if you ever think about astrology as you're looking at our current political climate. I have a friend that I constantly joke, oh, there goes Trump, classic Gemini. Like,
oh my gosh.
No one's going to beat him in a rhetorical sparring match. Like, there he goes, a generational Gemini. Do you think in those terms, or I thought, yeah, Hillary Clinton, she was going to have issues getting people behind her. No one likes a Scorpio woman. I mean, I do.
Treason.
But, they're not trusted, like this is going to be an uphill battle. Substance of her life in politics aside.
I know. And
I do
Biden.
wonder. And Biden. I've said this. Democrats keep running Scorpios.
I know. I'm like,
I don't
y'all
know
are
that's
really
what America wants.
Yeah. It's also like, for me, I'm always, because I'm definitely not a fan of it. Well, I'm just like the war hawk in Scorpio is very much there. The strategic kind of mind, the vigilance, and it's just all very much like it's not my favorite parts of Scorpio as someone who's a Scorpio stellium. But I think, again, it's all about how you mobilize these traits towards what end, right? Yeah, I mean, this is a huge way that astrology is used. My teachers and the astrologers that I would definitely recommend your listeners check out if they're unfamiliar is Chris Brennan, who runs the astrology podcast, has just he does a much better job than I do. He's also a multi-generational astrologer specifically, he has a really beautiful episode on astrology for skeptics, and he's interviewed by one. And I think that would be an incredible episode for your listeners. Him and a scholar and depth psychologist, Richard Tarnas, who has this incredible book called Cosmos and Psyche. He basically is a scholar who studies the kind of correlation between the outer planets, the patterns of the outer planets moving positions with major cultural events. And 2025 has been the most unprecedented year in all of the outer planets changing signs and elements, and the implications that we've seen play out already in 2025 for what that's meant. And we're obviously at the very beginning where things are glimmered and we're seeing glimpses and intimations into change, right? But the outer planets are very, very slow moving. So the kind of way that the expressions of them take time. But we feel the effects, you know what I mean, immediately, especially when there's a change of sign that doesn't happen for over 20 plus years, sometimes more than that. So I think that there's also, the United States, every country has its own natal chart. And so what a lot of astrologers do is they're taking a Donald Trump's birth chart, and they're also kind of juxtaposing it against the birth chart of the United States when it comes to prediction.
Wait, is America a Cancer?
America's a Cancer, Aquarius, Moon, Sag rising.
Oh boy, I gotta get out of here.
You're like, wait, it's America. I love that you knew
It's
that.
time for me. I'm gonna move to India because Indian Independence Day is my birthday, so I know it's a Leo. Maybe that's a good fit.
You're like, wait, for example. So I think that's like one really, strong way that they use it. Obviously, analyzing the birth chart of a Trump has been like really, really, I mean, that's been kind of what has been asked directly of astrologers is like, okay, he's Gemini. For a while, Jupiter, the planet of expansion and kind of luck. It's a lot more than that. It's actually like higher learning, higher mind, philosophy was in Gemini for a while. It just moved into Cancer, and he's a Gemini sun. So oftentimes that will mean there's a conjunction or there's kind of like a gift of luck bestowed upon those signs. So people were viewing that favorably as, oh, wow, Jupiter in Gemini, he's a Gemini, and he was also a Leo rising. And there was a lot of, there was a lot of stuff happening in Leo for that exact time that was planets were unusually long in Leo.
He's
so,
Leo rising.
Leo rising, very on the news.
Of course he is.
Very on the news. But I myself am not I just think it's really dangerous to be an astrologer putting yourself out there with predictions. Like, I would never do that. I also don't find that interesting. I always tell my clients and anyone who talks to me about how I view astrology is like, I view them as celestial conditions. It's very like an extension of my political understanding of the world, which is these are sets of conditions, right, that make certain energies available or less available or more available. So for me, it's less interesting in a way to say this is what's going to happen. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, think about how philosophical that becomes. So it's like the fate, free will, destiny conversation. It's right to the surface at that point.
Well, less predictive value, but more, what can we understand about who these people are and what their sort of strengths and weaknesses are.
Yes.
And that obviously lends some predictive value, right? Like if someone's vulnerabilities are they're not lacking in confidence, not a good public speaker, unable to do well in debate. I mean, like that's going to bear out in the course of a, election campaign. And to that end, I am curious about Kamala. I've been calling her a Scorpio, but I think she's on the cusp.
Oh, she's a Libra, I thought.
She's October 20th.
Yeah, she's a Libra.
She's a Libra. Yeah. Fun fact, I feel very strongly, I'm told, that I am supposed to be very good with Libras, very compatible with Libras, around Libras,
Why?
partnered with a Libra.
Okay.
In a very broad fire, air sign compatibility.
Oh,
way.
But you're a Taurus rising, so it's actually water is your,
Don't say that to me, Isa.
You're in a particular moment where you're like, don't tell me water, but I'm going to say water.
Seriously?
I mean, air, you do have a stellium and fire, and I do feel that fire and air have a certain like shared understanding of things. But
and what's a stellium?
Stellium is when you have a lot of planets in one sign. So it's like a cluster of planets were together in the sky at the exact time of your birth. They were all hanging out in the same area.
In Leo. Okay. And yet, because of this one frickin' Taurus rising, you think I need to be...
You're really processing this in real. It's like slow motion.
I tried.
You're all...
Isa, I tried. I hunkered down with a Pisces for 2.5 years.
But we don't know. Sun sign astrology is so limited.
Okay.
Like we would need to know so much more. It tells you almost nothing.
He had a Leo in his chart. He had a Leo rising, I think, if I recall correctly. Not that I'm checking on CoStar.
Yeah, that matters a lot more. So your ascendant sets the ephemeris. It sets the wheel of your chart. It sets like everything. So I really want people to think more about compatibility as it pertains to your rising sign, which is like really kind of setting the direction of your life. And matchmakers really use that a lot more. But I think there's a lot of intuition that goes into matchmaking and compatibility, because like we also are the authority on our own selves and our own what we need and what especially at this time in our life when we're older, we kind of know, right, from experience.
You know what? I feel like I've been having the opposite. Or
you know less.
Like, well, I feel like I'm trying to be open to the idea that whatever notions that I had about myself that I've been using to direct my choices may be flawed. Now, that in and of itself might be wrong, right? Like it's sometimes just the case. I was having this conversation with a friend the other day where we live in a society where like not being partnered is perceived as having done something wrong, when having certain sort of standards or boundaries or expectations for yourself can also save you from having been married or gone down paths that might have been read as success because you got across the altar, but ended poorly.
Absolutely.
And in a unhappy marriage or a divorce. So I don't necessarily perceive the choices that I have made as incorrect. But it is difficult to get to a certain place in your life and not, or I think it maybe it's unwise to get to a certain place in your life and not at least be willing to reflect on whether or not the sort of signpost you've been using or the sort of reasoning that you've been using might not always have been bearing the best fruit for you.
I think that's so wise. I'm in the same place. I will also, to ground in astrology, both of us are Taurus risings and our descendant. You have the ascendant and the descendant. And the descendant is like the lost self or the mirrored self. And it can also oftentimes represent like an ideal partner. Think about these things archetypally. It doesn't have to be so literal. Is Scorpio. And Scorpio is really like a sign about transformation. And I think oftentimes Taurus risings, and again, for the skeptics, this can be well documented. I mean, a lot of astrologers, what we do is we study public people. So people who've lived and died, and we can study throughout their life the patterns, right? And the database can be hundreds of thousands at this point in history. And what you'll find is a lot of Taurus risings, shout out, I think Shaka Khan has a very similar she has an interesting love life. I love thinking about like who else. But Scorpio is really here. Taurus risings are really here to be challenged through our relationships romantically. And so what we often find is that Taurus risings are trying to understand and work through a lot of these inner dynamics through partnership, which you could say everyone is. But I think if you notice, like Taurus risings typically have multiple marriages, multiple partners. And I think it's easy to, I've had a whole struggle with kind of pathologizing that because that's inherited pathology that I apply to myself. And we also like our MC, which is like the position, the most public place in our chart that connects us to society is in Aquarius. And Aquarius is, it's one of its co-rulers is Uranus in the modern system, the liberator planet. It's the planet that is trying to shake up the Capricornian, Saturnian kind of assumed notions of convention, which I would put marriage in that camp, or I would put normative expectations of a good life, right? Lauren Berlant is one of my favorite Scorpio scholars, and her work is really about trying to get us to deconstruct the good life, right? Like, which is actually a lot of times things that don't make our lives flourish. They make, especially for marginalized folks, it's like these are not flourishing milestones for a lot of women. Like to get married, for example, it can be beautiful, but a lot of times, like let's just break down the political and economic history of marriage and like what that's meant, right? So I think to say Taurus risings with our Aquarius MC and our Scorpio in the 7th, like a lot of what we're here to understand and to be an exemplar of is subverting some of these conventions, which can be really powerful. And it can also be really challenging in the personal experience of it. When we're still people who want to belong, who want to feel a sense of connection, but oftentimes we're drawn to or we're magnetizing relationships that aren't necessarily about longevity. Sometimes they're just about an intensity and a transformation. Scorpio wants you to transform, right? So you can transform. Yeah, you can transform with one person. I always say, like, maybe I'm poly with one person.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know if it's a coping mechanism or not, but I've been trying to think differently about relationships as having, the value for what they are as opposed to them having needed to lead somewhere terminal. I mean...
Terminal is, oh my God. Was that the most amazing thing you could have said? That's the most Scorpio thing you could have said.
That's so funny. Terminal. I do have these two, placements in Scorpio, and I don't think about them at all. Like I've never...
You should.
Contemplated their effect on my personality. I like Scorpios a lot. My best friend, shout out to everyone who has been listening since I had the Swody podcast, Someone's Wrong on the Internet with Joe, is a Scorpio, celebrating his birthday next month. And I'm very attracted to like Scorpio energy. Now, I also believe it to be very not always the most compatible with mine, but I love Scorpios. The question is if they love me back. My
Right.
experience of them is I meet them and they, for lack of a better way to describe it, I feel a lot of kind of fire sign almost energy, charm, like social competency, but combined with this sort of mystery. If Leos are like a Labrador, then Scorpios are like a cat, Yeah. And so there's like a
stealth,
a sexy mystery, a stealth. I often feel, given my certain amount of social competency, that I'm running a conversation, that I'm running the social event. Like I have control over what's happening
Very
at this
Leo.
wedding or these new people that I've met. Like I got this. I can make this good.
Yes, that's your chart for sure.
But when I'm around a Scorpio, they also have that, and they are not as forthcoming as I'm being, and I find the like a little bit of unsteadiness around them to be very magnetizing and fascinating. But unlike me, I find that they are more sensitive, that they are more easily wounded, that I am sometimes doing the wounding unwittingly. And I find that I meet a Scorpio, I think this is my new best friend in the world. I love them. They're great. And within 3 weeks, we've had a huge fight. And either we get past it and we're bosom buddies, or we're like they have simmering resentment toward me for the rest of all time.
You're reading this very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I mean, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus are the fixed signs. Every sign has a modality or like a way of being. And the fixed signs, they all create squares with each other if they're not creating an opposition. Because in astrology, everything is like sets of two. So it's duality. So there's Leo and Aquarius would oppose each other. Scorpio and Taurus would oppose each other. But then Leo and Scorpio are known, they create what's called a square, which they're in the same modality. So they kind of share certain shorthand understandings, right? Like fixed signs were the signs between seasons, right? Remember, astrology is a narrative, and it's also one that's embedded in nature. So again, just reminding skeptics that these things are contextualized within nature, within science, so they're not random and decontextualized. So the fixed signs are the sustainer signs. They're the signs that sustain seasons. And so when they square, often it's because Leo can be more playful, more joyful. They want to be the ones that kind of show off and also lead. And then Scorpios, like you read so perfectly, are more nocturnal. And so their motivations are obscured. And so you can see how that would create tension, because Leo wants everything to be above board and everything to be more explicit. And Scorpio, isn't trying to necessarily be manipulative, but it operates very differently. It's, it's the swamp. So there's just going to be a lot of things where both people expressing who they are authentically, it creates kind of misunderstandings. But I just told you offline, or if we're going to air it or not, but I actually love squares. You and I have a lot of squares natally in our own psychic kind of star map. So you have your two luminaries, your sun and your moon, which are super important to study and get familiar with if you do embark on the journey of astrology, are squaring your natal Saturn in Scorpio. So I think it would be really interesting in a really, really tight orb with Saturn, and your Saturn is in Scorpio. So there's actually some of that subterranean influence in your own psyche. It just might be in a place that for you, your Saturn sits in your relationship house. So it might not actually be coming from within you. It might be something that you're attracting or something that comes at you. It's like life keeps bringing you these people that are, it doesn't have to be literal, by the way, that they are literal Scorpios, though it certainly can be. It can just be there's oftentimes power struggles or people who come to you who test you in a certain way. But I will say, we all know what you do. You're a public person. You're someone who's super fierce. You're someone who's really, really sharp and smart, and who's someone who can throw down, So I think that to me it's Leo, but it is a little Scorpio. Like I think Leos can sometimes actually not want to throw down, if I'm being honest, in the way you do.
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is also what I love about my friend. Look.
Hey, look.
I have goals, right? I have political goals, and me being snarky and a little dark and mean-spirited is not conducive to those goals. But that is not to say that I don't have my instincts and my moments.
There we go.
So
love how you're wording
this. Sometimes I feel like I'm very much performing
Leo.
generosity. Yeah, like I'm performing being above it all. And then people on the internet will try me, right? Like I think they take
How do you deal with that?
my kindness for weakness. And then I'm like, I have to block people because the Scorpio in me wants to tell people off.
Yes.
Every day. I have like a burn book. I have like, and my draft tweets are like a burn book of things that I write and then don't say.
Oh, that's so
because
smart.
it would ruin my public interest, my public perception, because I am thinking.
Yes.
Some very unkind things about some folks who think they can just step to me all the time on the internet because I am constrained. I'm constrained because I want to prioritize what my like substantive goals are over my desire to clap back or whatever it is. Not to say that I'm always
you're
perfect.
describing your chart so
but...
beautifully. Yeah, that's such a good example of like Leo knowing it's ruled by the sun, it has certain goals, it needs to cohere. Like Leo centralizes, right? It's ruled by the sun sits at the center of the solar system. And so you do need to be careful, right? But that Scorpio, I think, has that kind of like Martian warrior combative spirit. And also what you said earlier is that Scorpio energy needs to be careful because it can be easily wounded. And sometimes what I always say about Scorpios is that we're preemptively paranoid. So we can preempt a certain kind of battle that it's like, maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. But I think, and as we've gotten older, I think you can always tell when someone's really insecure because it's like, oh my gosh, don't be so like defensive, right? Or rocked by disagreement. And let's be honest about the internet. It's usually not disagreement. I mean, it's not debate. It's like someone trying to like ruin your life.
Sure.
Whatever.
It's a little bad faith, you might even say.
It's a little bad faith. And I don't have a lot of experience with that yet, and I do think as a Scorpio Aries, like I need to be careful with that because I could easily
Aries.
Yeah, I think I'm super sensitive. And I'm also my Aries moon. I mean, who are Aries moons? It's Tupac. It's me. It's Cardi B. Unfortunately, it's Kamala. It's a lot of people in politics and music. And I think Aries moons notoriously are quick. We are quick to say a thing that we haven't thought through.
And that's why she's blowing up on all these book tour stages.
Exactly, but we love Cardi more. We love Cardi more. But I just think I need to be careful because I do think there was a phrase in I think the Zapatista movement that was like, know your enemy, choose your enemy. And I remember being young and being like, oh, we're really bad at that where I'm from. Like we always think the enemy is here within the movement. And there's reasons why we think that because there's been plants and it's been a strategy that's been used to completely break up movements very effectively. But I remember being like, wow, like that is something we struggle with. Like it's hard for us to really truly unify because we don't always have that intimacy within our movements. Like intimacy is really required for trust. And when you're getting infiltrated and when you're trying to do these actions and you don't know each other, like growing up, I knew everyone I did political actions with. And now sometimes I'll be at big protests and I'll look around and be like, wow, like I don't know anyone's name. And that doesn't mean it's not important. And that doesn't mean it's not powerful, right? Like I also love anonymous actions where we're just like a body of dissent. We're a consensus body. But I also think that lack of intimacy creates a lot of paranoia in our movements. So I think there's something about knowing your opponent that a refined Scorpio or refined Aries could become incredible at, of being like, no, I'm not going to waste my stinger on you because I know that when it's time to act, I'm going to be swift and precise. So I think that's Scorpio at our best, is not wasting our venom, which is also our medicine. Be really discerning with who you sting because it's almost like an honor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like, Scorpios aren't like, a scorpion isn't like this, but it's like a bee. You don't want to die. You don't want to waste your sting on an unworthy subject if we're both going to go down, if there's going to be.
I think maybe that's what I was thinking of. That was the visual I was thinking of is like a lot of animals or insects, they die when they strike. So I think that's what I aspire. And I think I've gotten so much better with age, just like really conserving that strike because it's kind of like then it undermines its power. I don't want to undermine my own kind of like power.
you find yourself, I mean, I kind of referenced this earlier that, I have instincts about who is most compatible with me, but I try not to let it actually drive my decision making because that feels a little crazy, especially since you're telling me that I shouldn't be so driven by the sun sign as opposed to the rising sign, which fair enough. The Pisces was a Gemini rising, which maybe explains why there was a lot more compatibility there than I might have anticipated. I do love it. I can't help it. I love a Gemini.
Me too.
I can't help it. I love
them.
Yeah,
but so do I.
Do you find yourself having your knowledge of astrology inform your relationships, or do you try to prevent yourself from how do you negotiate that?
I mean, I love music and astrology, so I love patterns. Like I love clocking things, but I try and hold, I guess, like an analysis off. I'm sure that like I'm making one, but I try to just kind of like allow myself to have the experience. I mean, I really try and encourage people not to, because I think, again, this is like a huge reason people are turned off by it. Because people who don't know anything about, like some of the guests on my show are so sweet. So I'll be like, what's your relationship to astrology? And they'll be like, I know I'm an Aquarius, so I'm a water sign. And I'm like, okay, so people don't even know the basics of their sun sign, which is like, for all the astrologers listening, we're like, yeah, LOL, that's nothing, right? So I think that
Aquarius is an air sign for those. It's an air sign, and it's by why we're laughing.
And its symbol is the water carrier, so it's the water bearer. But yeah, I think that there's just really like sometimes a lot of people making decisions on dating or on business with such a novice level understanding of these signs and what they mean. So I think that scares me a little bit. I'm like, oh my God.
Sure.
But of course, like, of course I clock it. Yeah.
Like, okay, so if you were hypothetically on an app.
Yeah. Hypothetically.
And you're hypothetically, and you see like, I mean, who do you have a thought in your head like, oh, I have had very bad experiences with, you're an Aries, right? No, you're Taurus rising, obviously. So
Taurus.
I've had very bad experiences with, say, Aquarian risings. I don't know.
My ex was Aquarius rising. Yeah.
Say more.
I mean, I don't like. I'll look at it and I'll find it fascinating. There's a whole. In astrology, there's this thing called evolutionary astrology where we look at progressions of a birth chart. And so I'm a progressed Cancer rising and a progressed Capricorn sun. And since I've become those things, like I'm only attracting Cancer Cap. So I'll clock that.
What does that mean what does it mean to progress?
So every birth chart has a degree that every planet is at. And for a lot of times when you're beginning your astrology practice, you don't understand the degrees. Like, what does it mean to be you're 20 degrees Taurus rising, I'm 28 degrees. And it's like these are the literal place, the degree of where they were in the sky, because everything's mapped against constellations. And so what it means is that every year you're born, you're going to be, the sky is shifting. So it's essentially like a birth chart against the current sky. And so it's creating kind of like a new fluid contextual birth chart as it pertains to the current sky. So it depends on the degree you were born in your sign of your ascendant and your sun. And so every degree it's going to go forward into the next sign. So for Scorpios, we're going to progress into Sag and Capricorn, right? All these things are narrative. So it starts with Aries, it ends with Pisces. And so if you're a Taurus rising, the sign after Taurus is Gemini, and then it goes to Cancer. So you're going to progress, only so much, right? Because 1 degree is 1 year and there's 30 degrees. So you're going to be 30 degrees for 30 years. You'll be a progressed Cap sun for 30 degrees. For 30 years, you'll be a progressed Cancer. So it's slow. You're in that expression for a long time.
So am I in my am I in my Virgo era? Oh,
I think you're like me. I think you're a progressed Cancer Cap. No, you're not a Cap. You're a Leo sun. Sorry. Cancer. I haven't done your
Cancer
progression
Virgo?
yet.
Cancer Virgo?
I can do it really quick right now for you. You are a progressed Cancer rising like me, and you're a sun in Libra, moon in Aquarius. So you should know that even if you don't understand it yet, just clock who you're attracting. Okay. Like if you start attracting more Cancers, more Capricorns, more Libra.
I'm attracting Cancer men.
Same. That's all I'm attracting.
I can't.
That's all I'm attracting.
I cannot.
Really? I kind of love them.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing, because you are a water sign. Like, I know I'm not supposed to pay attention to your sun sign. I'm sorry. Old habits die hard. You're a water sign.
No, you can pay attention to it. Yeah.
My fundamental problem with the water signs, it's not me. It's that, like, it's the same with Scorpios. Like, it's not, I'm not the one with the problem. It's their sensitivity. And both my brothers are Cancers, love them down. But like, this is why I have this experience with them, especially my older brother. My younger brother's my stepbrother, so I didn't grow up with him. But my older brother, it's like, it's nobody's fault, but I talk too loudly. The way I walk up and down the stairs is too loud. It's too cold. It's too hot. Yeah, the eggs that I cooked are smelling up the house too much. It smells too much like eggs. You got to turn the Dyson fan on. Like, I feel like everything that I do is offensive to them.
But are they still into you?
Some of the, I may or may not have entertained a Cancer recently. And there are things that I like about them. They are like, they like to do a little sloth. I'm a Leo. I like to have my down times, right?
Yeah.
I like to hibernate in between periods of hunting. And so they like to be cuddly and watching TV and be snuggly and at home. And they can be emotionally expressive in an affirming way that I like as a Leo. And so there are things, they like nice things, clothes, restaurants, you know, they like a nice life. Whether or not they can afford it is a different thing, but they like
that's
it.
hella funny.
You know, and so there's a kind of comfort that I enjoy.
That's a good word.
But also, I have to cancel this date because I have a headache. Oh, my
that's
Lord.
very them.
Oh, my allergies.
To be ruled by the moon. And you're ruled by the sun.
Together.
So.
Like,
But I just need to blow your mind really quick, though.
Okay.
Because all of your Leo, which for listeners, you just have so much. Your sun, your Mercury, your Venus. Your Venus is in Cancer. Your Mars. Like, you're just a Leo through and through. And all of your Leo, and I know house placements can really intimidate people, but they're so important because every house represents themes that the planet influences. So it gets more and more precise. And for the skeptics who think about confirmation bias, which is a really good thing to be skeptical about, when you get a birth chart read by a talented astrologer, experienced astrologer, you're like blown away by the level of nuance. It's more like a fingerprint where you start to see the unique kind of precision of your cosmic blueprint. And all of your Leo is in the 4th house of Cancer. So every house is associated with a sign. And the good news is that every house is the same narrative as the sign. So Aries to Pisces, 1st house to 12th house. And they do have correlations that are not exact, but it's helpful when you're learning the houses and what themes they represent. They do loosely correlate to the sign. So the 1st house, Aries, 2nd, Taurus, 3rd, Gemini, 4th, Cancer. Does that make sense? So your Leo is all those Leo planets are shining in this Cancerian house that rules and presides over themes of family, emotional archiving, just the literal home. So like you and I have our like literal residence is what I mean. Like as it's symbolic and literal in Leo. So a lot of times Taurus risings have very beautiful homes. The homes are very Leo. Like they need to
do a little interior design.
Yeah,
it does look nice over there. You guys can't see it, but
it looks really beautiful from the view that we're seeing. So there's things that are literal expressions of it. Like a lot of Taurus risings with Leo in the 4th have beautiful homes, but it's also, there can be more poetic and symbolic descriptions of it. Like people who illuminate or put a spotlight on things that are hidden because the 4th house is a very private house. And so it deals with like our lineages, our roots, things that we've inherited, whether they're literal or like symbolic archetypal patternings from our families. And so there's going to be a lot of magnetism from Cancers towards you because of your house placement. But you're very, very accurate that Leo and Cancer have that rub. And I think it's important to think of these elemental rubs where fire is more associated in all cultures with action. And so there's a way in which moody Cancer that's like, think about it's moon ruled. It's like thinking about the tides coming in and out. That can drive a Leo crazy and vice versa. Because the Leo's like, what is your problem? We just turn the fan off or wear a sweater.
Yeah, it's like, why is this my problem? Like, I don't mean to be so unkind. Like, I'm not trying to be unkind, but you're making it my problem.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, especially if it's your
here's what it
intimate
is.
partner.
It feels like a judgment, right? And as a Leo, I don't like I don't mind that you're uncomfortable. I would like to help you, but it starts to feel like a judgment. And also, sometimes it wrecks my Friday night. I had plans.
Yeah, for sure. Say that.
I did my hair. Like, what are we doing?
I mean, I'm a Scorpio. I feel you on that there's a trine between Scorpio and Cancer because we're the same element. So the same, if you date a Sag or an Aries, even if there are incompatibilities, there's a harmony and like a shared kind of expression or way of being. But I'm so similar to you, where like I have a fire moon. So like sometimes when Cancer moons are like, I'm in such a weird mood. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm in a good mood. And I need us to be lit right now together.
Yeah. That is, I struggle with that. I have often wondered, again, I don't know anything about anything. I'm relying on the CoStar app and some Googling, and, you know, my grandmother's pretty good at stuff. She's the one that I think,
fourth house.
It's not like anyone ever sat me down and was like, believe in astrology, but, you know, it's been in the ether. Yeah. My grandmother gave me her Linda Goodman sun signs, which is split into two pieces because it's been so rifled through. And so that's been in the ether, but my intuition, I find myself attracted to, I should say, earth signs. And I've wondered if there's something about my Taurus rising, but the way they can't stand me.
Oh my gosh, I love how
the way they go running in the opposite direction from me. Because, you know, I'm all the things that I'm attracted to the things that I'm not. Like, I think we were talking about this at the beginning. Not wanting confirmation bias, looking for people who kind of are expansive. And I have a lot of admiration for folks who have that stability, and they're hardworking and they're good at something. Oh, I heard you say this, I think, to Jay Wortham, that like a Taurus rising has an appreciation for people who are just really good.
Yes.
Not necessarily at their jobs, but good at something.
Yes.
Woodworking, working with their hands, you know, just knowledgeable. And that resonates with me, and I like that in earth signs. But don't be 5 minutes late for a date.
I wanted an example. I was like, I don't see where the rub would be, because you seem like all those things.
No. And I have like, found, like, communication-wise, like there's not the same... They're not excited by any kind of discourse. They don't find it to be stimulating. I think they're like made anxious by it, and they want the quote unquote conflict to end. I have a very high tolerance for conflict.
Me too,
obviously. And so I'm not thinking we're even having conflict. I'm thinking we're talking.
I definitely think you need that. Your chart needs to be met. I think I think about this for myself too, where like I think I've been overusing the word a need for like intellectual companionship and compatibility. And I think the word intellectual becomes a little bit too abstract. And I think for me, it's more conversational chemistry. Like I want to feel like we can talk, because that's a big part of my erotic. And I think that's true for you too, or like to be able to not be self-conscious, you know, in your partnerships and your close friendships. That's super important. And I think if you're someone who's excitable by ideas, this is where we see fire and air really work together. Like if you're a progressed Libra, which Libra is an air sign, like I think Libra, Aquarius, they're just really, and Gemini, obviously, they're just incredible debaters. And there's a certain kind of...
Why can't I have a Gemini?
What?
Why won't the earth just allow me to have the Gemini that I want?
I mean, we don't know what's coming your way. We don't know what's coming your way during Scorpio season.
Apparently it's all these Cancerians trying to pour a bucket of water over my fire all the time.
Okay, I will say, to just answer your initial question, like I think, and maybe this is too corny of me to say, but I think that sometimes I am curious about what those patterns are of what we're attracting and what's the lesson. You know, like what is the teacher here? And I think that's maybe just me being too open, but I think I'm very curious about those patterns of like, what are the patterns that I'm attracting, and like, what am I, even if it's attention or something, like, what is it offering me? I've been attracting a lot of Cancers too, and I'm like, maybe there's an emotional unavailability pattern with me that this is making me confront, which I think is what I've come to realize. That I think sometimes Cancer men are actually better at naming their emotions than I am. And so I think sometimes there's like a resentment it brings up, or it's not resentment, that's crazy. It's a discomfort. It brings up a discomfort with me. And I think I'm trying to learn how to sit with that discomfort and not even analyze it, but just notice it. And so I think sometimes I'm grateful for that, even if I don't understand it fully. I'm like,
I'm not fair.
Yeah.
I
So
think
that's the only
fair.
thing I would offer.
I think that's fair. And I do think that part of my attraction to fire signs in the odd Gemini, when I find one. I mean, I find them, to be so clear, I find them, I meet them constantly. If I am in a store, if I'm in a J. Crew,
Out and about.
and I'm chit-chatting suddenly for 20 minutes among the sweaters with someone who I just met, and I'm like, holy crap, we've been standing here for 20 minutes. Are you a Gemini? The answer is yes.
Oh.
If I find myself out in the world randomly engrossed in conversation with someone, like we're thick as thieves. In fact, I should have asked this girl I met at the Gaza 5K this weekend. We both finished. She was number 2 woman in her age group. I was number 2 woman in my age group.
Congrats.
So we finished at the same time. We were chit-chatting. And we swapped Stravas, and now we're friends. I should have asked her sign, because I bet
there's some Gemini in there. Yeah.
I bet she's a Gemini. So I meet them all the time. I don't date them very often, though. But
I
the
don't either.
fire signs, I find, they get a bad rap.
They do. Say more, though.
So the reputation is that they are flighty, inconsistent, maybe cheaters, even players. Exactly. Yeah. Again, my first boyfriend was a Gemini, and I had a dalliance with a Gemini earlier this year. But I wouldn't say that I have enough experience to really say. My first boyfriend didn't present as a Gemini at all. I would say he presented more like a Taurus. He looked like a Taurus. He acted like a Taurus.
He probably had a bunch of Taurus. Yeah.
He probably did. He probably did.
Yeah.
More recently, he might have conformed to type a little bit, the more recent Gemini. But that wasn't my issue. Like, I don't find them to be fickle. Like Gemini girlfriends, I don't find them to be fickle. Is my Gemini friend gonna be late to everything we do? Yes.
Yeah.
Me, I don't care. I bring a book. I've known this woman since high school. I know she's gonna be late. At this point, if I don't bring a book and my phone's not charged, and I don't, I pick some place to meet her that's comfortable for me to sit and wait.
I'm the same way.
And it's cool because I value her friendship, and it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of I
love that
flaws.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
That's super loving.
Water signs are, sorry, Cancerian's not going to be, no, let me not. Or earth sign, I should say, Capricorn's not going to be that patient with you about it.
No, I can, I can concur. I date a lot of Capricorn, so yeah.
Okay, so tell me, how's that going?
I think Scorpio and Caps are I think they're a dynamic duo for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Scorpio and Cap can be very intense. I think we are very slow to reveal our position, meaning slow to reveal our cards. And I think that can obviously create a huge impasse. That's not healthy, where it's too much invulnerability. But I also think it's a comfort zone for earth signs and for Scorpios sometimes, is to actually go slow. I think that can make us feel more safe when we're not cornered. But my Aries loves being cornered. My Aries loves let's take it from 0 to 100, but my Scorpio is very, very guarded and slow. And my Taurus rising is very slow. So I think sometimes Capricorns make me feel a little safer because I don't feel like I don't have to perform my emotion for them, which I really, really appreciate, especially because I date men. So I like not having to perform a certain I'm obsessed with you if I don't feel that way until I need to see someone through a lot of different situations to feel like I want to share my vulnerability. Because what if I say too much too soon and then I see them interact with my friends and I'm like, psych.
It's embarrassing. A man,
it's embarrassing. That's the right word.
A man will embarrass you for liking them too much too fast.
Yeah. 100%.
It was so funny. I had a long conversation with an ex this past weekend, actually, and we were mooting this and sort of, with distance, you can kind of have a more abstract, not abstract, a less emotional conversation about what happened and what life has been like since and all of that. And we were having this conversation about what might be described as love bombing and their tendency toward doing it and my susceptibility to it. So I'm the opposite.
Leos are
I can be persuaded.
I know. Leos are very susceptible to because what another difference between Scorpio and Leo is Scorpio, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Leo can be more down for generic compliments, especially at the front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, I'm beautiful, I'm this and that. Whereas I'm Nah. Because for me, I'm like, you could be saying that to anybody.
Yeah,
Look at you, you're processing.
we'll believe we'll believe the compliment.
I'm not believing anything until you say the most niche Issa specific thing, which usually is a roast. I'm just like, if you roast me in a certain way, I'm like, oh, you love me. You see me.
That's so interesting because so you know the Woody Allen quote? I think it's Woody Allen. That's like, I don't want to be a member of a club. Maybe it's Woody quoting Groucho Marx or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member.
Yes.
Sort of vibe. I'm the opposite.
Yeah. Well, that's very Aquarius, and you're a Leo. You're the opposite sign. Yeah.
I feel like, especially in breakups, I rebound very well during breakups because I'm like, oh, I liked you because you demonstrated good taste and judgment and wanted to be with me.
I know. I need that trait. Give me that trait.
And that's what my Scorpio bestie says, that like he doesn't, like we react to breakups very differently for that reason. And I'm like, that guy was a scrub. Like, he doesn't appreciate you. Like, obviously he sucks because he doesn't want to be with you anymore. Like, what's the problem? Let's keep it pushing. You're great.
Put that in my veins. Put it in my veins. I'm not like that at all. Yeah.
But the flip side of it is that I'm also very susceptible to love bombing. It's like, well, I was on the fence about you, but if you're like that affirming.
Yeah, be careful with that. Because also, because I also, how do Leos, like for you specifically, how do you feel like you deal with, you seem like a very reflective person, but I specifically mean like in the throes of a breakup, really thinking deeply about what are the things I could have improved and then like implementing that change or like taking accountability.
I will. The thing about Leos that gets us misunderstood, I think.
I love this.
Is let me like tuck the imaginary hair by my ear. Is that of course the basis of all of the Leo performativity is a kind of insecurity, right? Like it's not rocket science, but that's what it is. And sometimes the bombast in an almost sort of aggressive way that we're out in the world makes folks not very open to our own vulnerability or like really meeting that emotional need. And that when we're being braggadocious or like soliciting compliments, it's because we really need it actually. And not just because we feel so great about ourselves all the time and we want you just like, to pile on. And so then people will become withholding because they think, surely you know that you're great. Everyone's affirming you all the time. Like, surely you know. And in relationships in particular, I have observed that as I have more of a public persona and I'm dating now as someone with more of a public image, that in particular, they don't feel the need to affirm.
What is up with that?
I know, it's very frustrating. So that is all that's just the background for this question that you're asking, which is how are you reflecting about the role you're like in the wake of relationships? It is this push and pull where like I feel as a Leo, am I being too much? Am I being too narcissistic or am I asking too much from people? Versus like like it's protective, a certain amount of ego, right?
Yeah,
like a certain amount of self-esteem, especially if you feel like it's like those finger trap toys where it's like the more I get external validation, the less that I'm getting from this other from my actual intimates, who I really want it from. And so now you're asking me to kind of give up the external validation or my desire for the external validation right when I'm increasingly needing it because the people intimate to me aren't giving it to me. It's like, who's going to go first, right? Wow. Who's going to drop the, what do you call this? What do you call this? When you're pulling the rope and it's a game you play in gym class. Who's gonna drop the tug of war rope
tug of
first?
War, yeah. Wow, I'm really resonating with that. And I think that I'm curious where you've landed with it because I think again, I'm in this like corny place where I'm like, the challenge, that's the opportunity the challenge is creating for me has been working on my communication because I really sometimes want people, and I find Leos to be better at this than Scorpios, but sometimes because my Mercury is in Scorpio too. And I find that sometimes I withhold because I feel embarrassed to ask for what I need. because I think it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be like, can you reassure me? I also have this false belief that if I have to ask a man to compliment me, that he simply isn't moved enough by me. And that,
I frankly agree with that.
yeah,
It doesn't mean I won't ask.
but I won't. See, Leos are good at that. I won't ask.
It's so I was just having this conversation this weekend. I don't remember this about our relationship, but my ex was saying that he was also a Leo, by the way. He would say that he mentioned some disagreement we had about where I felt like he wasn't complimentary enough. And I was like, one, I don't remember this. But two, like we were dating during a tough time, right? Like it was COVID. I wasn't feeling my best self. Like I had the COVID-15. Like maybe I also, like there were a lot of, like I was unemployed because the Bernie campaign had ended. Like I wasn't feeling good. Admittedly wasn't feeling good about myself. And so shoot me that I wanted you to affirm me. But also here's the part of it as a Leo. I walk into a room, like we're not in a romantic relationship. This is with anybody, not just like my ex or whomever. If I see something beautiful, I want to say it. Oh, you got a haircut. Your lineup looks great. I love what you've done with this apartment. Gosh, you have such beautiful, glossy, perfect skin. I'm so envious. Like it's like a ticker tape of thoughts going across my head at all time. Many of them are positive. And when they're positive, there's especially no reason not to just let them out. There's very rarely am I thinking something that I'm not saying out loud. So to me, I'm like, well, I look nice too. Like I prepared to come here. Why isn't it your just instinct to say the nice things that you must be thinking about me the same way that I'm saying the nice things that I of course am thinking about you?
I mean, I do think a lot of that is learned. Like I'm similar to you, but I come from a family that really, and I'm not saying you came from this, but I did come from a family that like celebrated and encouraged that aspect of me. And I think that there are men where, and I don't know where I stand on this either, but I think there are men that view complimenting as really risky and vulnerable. And if that compliment's not received, I don't think they expect it to be fully reciprocated because you should give a compliment when you just feel moved to. But I think there's something exposing about it because it shows that there's a certain sense of care, that it shows there's a certain sense of awareness or observation. And I think what the question that's been coming up for me is, can I be with someone who's so self-conscious? Because that for me, I don't think works because I really want to be in a place in my life where I'm learning how to fully express, which is something I've had challenges around. So to choose a partner who's also very challenged in that area, I worry that it's going to stymie something that's already restrained in myself. And so, meaning obviously that's a contradiction. I just said I'm good at giving compliments, which I am, but I'm not necessarily as good as receiving them. And I think your intimate partner should be a place where you work on those things and you ask for them because it is really vulnerable. Like I'm really good at giving compliments to other people, but I think complimenting your partner, I think what's vulnerable about it is it gets so specific. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's something about the way that someone observes you that feels so intimate in a way that you look really good today. That's not as vulnerable.
I mean, yes. I mean, this is now like we're going a little farther afield from astrology.
Yeah, we are. As
now we're going into some like gender politics stuff that I'm going to just throw out there and
please
feel free to tell me that I'm okay. I do think sometimes that what is preventing #not all men, some men from wanting to be more complimentary in the context of a relationship is a kind of competitiveness. And this idea that they're losing something, they feel like already on the back foot. They might feel insecure because of professional success or earning power, because this bigger societal thing is happening, right? Where
it is.
The economy sucks. Men, we've had feminism. Men don't all out earn women. We can have our own credit cards. And the traditional gains to trade of what made it worth it for a man and a woman to be together in a relationship, the upsides aren't there as much for women as they used to be in terms of just the financial arrangement, right? Like, it's not a Jane Austen novel. I don't need your like 500 a year to survive or whatever, you know? So that's not to say that like rent isn't high and like everyone would benefit from partnership, but the gendered aspect of it.
Yeah.
So now men, I think there's some insecurity about that.
Of course.
Especially if you are a successful public-facing woman. And the stakes of like kind of like further like admitting a kind of a of course it's not being inferior. Of course it's not lowering yourself to compliment someone. But I do think psychologically it can be like, they have everything. I can't let them know that I also want them very badly. I can't let them know that I think they're very beautiful. I can't let them know that I think they're so successful and great, because what if they're too good for me? And like, what if they realize it? And what if they leave? And I have to humble them. And like,
You're
this
so
kind of dynamic
on point
starts
right
to
now.
emerge.
You're spitting right now. I mean, these are the conversations like I really want to have. Like I don't know how to cultivate this aspect of my life, but I really want to have conversations around this and convene them like now, because this is like where I'm really passionate about. And I really love talking to my close guy friends. I mean, this is what we talk about all the time. And we're talking about this also in like what you're talking about in the social, cultural, political context of like also I always just use the phrase like narrative confusion. It's like, what are the roles? And as someone who's, again, a later millennial, I don't know if I'm a later millennial, I'm 30, almost 39. I grew up in a strange time where like we still inherited the kind of old conventions of what a meaningful life, successful life was as they were breaking open and exploding, as there was an introduction of new language. But that was all happening as we were like growing up, and we were still trying to figure out how to relate, how to perform, what it meant, what we should be striving for, what were these milestones that we should covet, what are the ones that we should deconstruct and give up. And we're still in our 40s, like very much in parsing through that in real time with each other. Right. So I think there's a lot of grace to go around. And I think silence around these conversations is really scary. And I think we're seeing the stakes of that silence where now you have the YouTube. Did you read, oh my God, not it being right here. It looks like I'm paid. But Naomi Klein's doppelganger.
No, I haven't.
Speaking of the Gemini herself.
Oh, is she?
And for skeptics, Naomi Klein's a Gemini, and she wrote a book on doppelgangers. So I'm sorry, but the twins writing about the twin. And then you know who else is a Gemini is Ryan Coogler, whose movie is about twins.
Oh, about twins. Yeah.
So I'm just like, you cannot believe, but I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is like men become not just like the incel cartoonish man, but like professional 30, 40 something men become really vulnerable to like the YouTube manosphere and the propaganda around it really resonating with them because they feel increasing. And I'm not saying woe is these men, but I think it's just, I'm just someone who's interested in what's true.
Yeah.
Like, whether we like it or not like it, I'm seeing with my eyes this affect people's dating lives, people's daily realities. And so therefore it's really important for us to talk about, you know?
Yeah, I was watching, you're like, here's a book I'm reading. And I'm like, I was watching Love is Blind on Netflix.
Oh my God. Leo Scorpio. So good.
Have you watched this most current season that's
I haven't.
unfolding right now?
I live under a rock.
No, it's probably for the best. But this is how I decompress when I'm in my between hunting phases in the lion's den. And I have been observing. None of the relationships look like it's like a particularly bad season.
Okay.
And
that's
part
apt
of
for
what
the
I'm
times.
observing, like these people are okay. The conceit of the show aside, and how it's all reality TV and artificial and blah blah blah. These people have met in the pods, in these pods, not able to see each other. They're ostensibly able to connect on a deeper level because they're not swayed by the superficial. Exactly. But now we're out of the pods. They're all on vacation somewhere on a little honeymoon before they go back to the real world. And some fights have emerged at the resort. And the fights, a couple of them between a couple of different couples have taken on this very specific tenor where the woman, the man says or does something, intentionally or not, that offends the woman. He gets too drunk at the party. He isn't paying her any attention. He's broing out with the guys. He says something that maybe paints their relationship in an unflattering light, and she is hurt by it. She responds by either confronting him about it directly, sulking, crying when they're back in the room together, withdrawing physically in a way that to a woman looks very much like she's hurt. You said something that hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
Just go over there and tell her that you're sorry, and this could all be over with. Like she just what she's feeling insecure in this relationship because you met in a pod. Because you met in a pod 2 weeks ago and now you're engaged to be married. She's understandably insecure, especially because now you seem more distant because you've seen her.
Yeah.
And she can't tell if you're not attracted to her. She just wants to be affirmed. As a woman, I'm watching this and it's like neon light saying, affirm her, affirm her. All your problems go away if you just affirm her.
So true.
And the man refuses. And this isn't about him thinking like he was right or wrong on what he said or did. It doesn't even feel like there's that much reflection over that. But it kind of like there's a dug in sort of insecurity where they refuse almost because she so explicitly has asked for affirmation.
Yeah,
there's almost like I shouldn't have to do this attitude, right? Yep. And I'm not saying the women like you shouldn't throw a tantrum, you shouldn't act out. I'm not saying that the women are behaving perfectly gracefully. Right. They're also unable to directly communicate, hey, you hurt my feelings. It would be nice if you could affirm that you actually want to be in this with me. There's fault on both sides. I'm not trying to put this on the men. But why do I bring this up? Because it seems to reflect, again, this sort of pattern that I've observed in the real world where people are not behaving like they're on the same team. Like
That's not
they
how we
have
do it. Right.
There's no shared desire to resolve conflict. There is an instinct to defend one's position at any cost. At the cost of the relationship, is more important not to admit that you've ever done anything wrong, or not even that you've done anything wrong, but that another person is having a feeling that you could fix. Like a negative feeling that you could remedy.
I know.
And I think all of this... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Say it. No, go. Finish it.
It all seems to come back to this not knowing your role. And I think this is very gendered, not really understanding your role in the context of a heterosexual relationship. And for the man in particular to be feeling a sort of vulnerability that is, I think, driving this desire to dig in and not to do what, I'm sorry, as a woman, I hate to be reductive for us as well, but like 98% of relationships, like conflicts can be resolved by, I'm so sorry, my beautiful pet.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Maybe that's just me being a Leo. But like, just
there's definitely some Leo showing itself right now. But it does remind me of the Lauren, and people should look up Lauren Berlant's Cruel Optimism. But it does remind me of when we are defending a social position that fails us. So it's like defending inherited position where we haven't been able as men to express a range of emotion and be rewarded for it. So we resent a woman's need for a thing that is a need that has never been met for us. And so I'm not saying these things are conscious, right? I mean, that would be amazing if they were, because then maybe we would finally deal with them. James Baldwin is like also always above me, like hovering for this reason.
Another Leo.
I think another very Leo man. And his Mercury was also Leo. But yeah, I think to me, that's what it screams of. And I think women do this too. I think there's a way we all kind of defend the parts of our identities that are harming us. And I understand why we do that. But I think if we continue to do that, I brought up James Baldwin because he talks a lot about from a place of vulnerability in his own lived experience, like his kind of like genuine concern for those in the United States who truly want to know love. Because he has that, and I was quoting this in another interview with Kiese Lehman around even our intimacies are rigged with terror, which is an Adrienne Rich quote. And I think about that a lot in the context of the U.S. of like our intimacies are rigged with terror. And that's the work that needs to be done, because if we don't lay our arms down with each other, it's really hard. Love can't flourish there. And in my own dating life, I feel it in myself. I feel it in the partners. But I also feel where I feel hopeful is in the contested territory we can create as a couple of like, I'm feeling this. It's a result of these things. How are you feeling? And what that requires is a partner who can go there with me, right? Like, that's what it requires. It requires a partner. And I'm not even talking about in the language of it all. Like, I'm actually really repulsed by men who like speak therapy language to me. But just in terms of, I'm like, don't do that. I have my boner kill. But I think men who are willing to say, and again, we can both be stumbling through it. I think it's interesting when you're a public person who's kind of like telegraphing, I'm really good at language. because that doesn't necessarily translate to our intimate lives. And so I think sometimes people are perplexed when someone who's a public speaker isn't as articulate about their emotional inner life, right? But those are different things. Those are different skills. So I don't expect perfect anything, but I think just an attempt, a messy, honest attempt to share our inner states and cultivate an inner life that's true and honest is what I'm looking for. And I think it's important for all people, regardless of the male women thing, the gender thing that we all talk about
Yeah.
now. But I think it's just important. Like, and I think a lot of our
Yeah.
ancestors have been talking about this their whole lives.
You as a Scorpio girl, like, I don't know, my friend, I love Scorpio. I have these Scorpios in my life. And there's a lot that I relate to you about that sort of need to be known very intimately, but a sort of embarrassment about vulnerability or hesitation,
Oh, I have it too,
like a
though.
guardedness. Yeah, like I'm saying, I relate to it. But
Yeah.
I think if you're anything like the Scorpios in my life, it's like it takes a lot for them to trust. I'm begging for you. I want to trust. Like
Yeah.
I want to. Like give me an excuse and I will. You know?
No.
Whereas you have
Keep
to
that.
be like, no, well, it doesn't, and sometimes it backfires, but luckily I rebound well. But you guys are like, you have the sensitivity. And
Yeah.
and also like, but I find you guys to be, I think that you are I think that you were, that got the best of all of the bits. Honestly. I think that you have the ability to have like all of this social charisma mixed with an incredibly high emotional intelligence, the sensuality, like you guys have got it all. But then your Achilles heel is this sort of
The trust.
this lack of trust that can turn into like a dark mercurial place, go into a dark mercurial place. And as amazing as you guys will be, like I don't always think that you're seeing yourselves in that way. And you're, to your own point, are not receptive to even being told how great you are.
Yeah, and I think this is where astrology, like when I was in my skeptical phase, I think the thing I worried about it was people would enable behavior by being like, well, I'm such a Scorpio. And I try and what astrology has done for me is like profoundly the opposite, where I'll look at my chart and it's kind of like a challenge to continue to self-cultivate like not the best traits of each sign, but understand that my birth map is like a collaboration of elements. And so I'll try and call in certain elements when I'm being like, just to ground it, like I'll notice that I'm trying to collect data to make a case against why I shouldn't trust a stranger. And I'll start noticing, oh, I'm like data collecting for why this person doesn't really mean what they say. And then I'll pause and be like, I'd like to call my Aries moon to the stand. Because like my Aries moon is too fast to care. You know, it's like it's gonna just dive in. And the worst case scenario is this doesn't work out, but like we followed our passion, you know, and isn't that beautiful that it's not about protecting ourselves, it's about trying. So I think astrology can be really beautiful for that when you get to know your birth chart and you can understand that you're made up of all these different elements, and you can kind of conjure them when you're over relying. Like you and I both have stelliums. Again, we have concentrations of one energy. So I think sometimes it's helpful to remind ourselves that there's other available energies within us where it's like, let me call in my Taurus or let me call in my Cancer Venus in your case,
Yes, my
right?
mother has been trying to get me to call in my Cancer Venus.
Well, that's a really important placement for you. So I think she's right.
Is it as
Mom.
simple as like Venus is, ugh, that broad? She be right about some stuff
Venus and
sometimes.
Cancer is so beautiful. That's such a beautiful placement.
Is Venus, I think of simplistically, I'm sure, as like driving your romantic self. Like
Yeah, I
your,
mean, it's definitely how you seduce, you know, it's definitely like for a woman, like how you seduce, how you like show yourself aesthetically, your aesthetic choices, your relationship to money. Venus is also values. So the things that you value. So it's all of those things. And it's also really important because you're a Taurus rising, which is ruled by the planet Venus. So your natal Venus is like the steward signature of your life. So the fact that you're Cancer Venus and that's the only non-Leo placement in your inner planets is significant because it's your planet ruler, it's your chart ruler. So, and Cancer seems to be something you don't identify with, but it's an interesting thing to maybe investigate. What are the parts of you that are actually seeking that kind of comfort or that kind of not seeking, but actually that wasn't even what I meant. Like not even seeking, but what are the ways that you yourself are like a safe refuge for other people?
So this whole time I was reading Cancers, I was really reading myself. And when I said they like nice things but aren't good at money, I was just
talking about yourself.
Hardcore.
I was wondering the whole time. I was like, she kind of just talking about herself. True. Is this a cosmic self-portrait right now? The way you're like,
my accountant is very frustrated with me.
The way you're like, these signs can't stand me. I'm like, is this you talking to yourself? You're like, welcome to my one-woman play where I can't stand myself. You're like, and all these Scorpios can't stand me. It's like, okay. Sounds like you and yourself have a lot to work out later.
Drag me, Isa. Drag me.
You keep saying all these signs. I'm like, I think you seem very likable. So I don't know.
No, but that's a thing. There's a part of me that doesn't quite ever believe that people actually like in college when we all had our dorm rooms in the hall, all of our friend group. I'm going to linger in the door and not come into your room and sit down and talk because I don't want to overstay my welcome.
Yeah.
Like I a little bit I don't believe it. Like when I meet someone who listens to the podcast out in the world, I'm like, oh, what do you mean you listen to the podcast? That's crazy. Me too. Like, what are you doing?
Gee whiz, all right. Gotta go.
So yeah, there's this little piece of me that again, it's like that underlying Leo insecurity, I guess.
But it's also where does I know we probably have to go on, but move on. But where does your shyness live? Because the fourth house can be kind of shy energy. And the Leo, it's such an interesting contrast because you have this bold, like brash sign in a pretty shy place.
I've been shy. Like I was shy my entire life. That's the thing.
That doesn't shock me.
If you look at any of my report cards, through high school into college, I was not someone who spoke out in class. I was not someone but I would get into arguments. What would happen is that something I didn't want to talk, but then, a teacher would say something that I disagreed with sort of politically or substantively, or a friend of mine would be getting bullied by my stupid high school biology teacher who was such a see you next Tuesday. And I would feel the need to say something about how she was talking to my sweet Gemini, always late Gemini friend, for instance. Or, in law school in particular, I really found my voice because it's so explicitly political in a way that other classes in earlier parts of my educational life weren't, that I felt compelled to say things and then grew more confident in saying things over the course of those years in the Socratic style of the law school classroom. And when I do things, even like this podcast, like my Apple Watch will tell me that I burn 100 calories because my heart is racing. I'll have I try to record in gym shorts because I will perspire into my seat. And every time I do something, I feel like I'm jumping off a cliff. It's not like easy. My mother will be like, well, how are you so confident? No, like every time I'm about to do something, every time I was about to log in on Rising or like do something, it's like, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, jump. And it's more like a decision. How do I want to live my life and how do I want to be? And do I want my opinions heard and reflected in the world? Well, then I got to jump. But it doesn't come from a place of just like organic comfort, which is why some people have been wanting me to do all of these speaking events. And I'm like, I'm not a lecturer.
You're not?
I don't want to stand up and like give commentary at a podium. I'll interview someone.
Yeah.
I love to chat, but I don't necessarily want to like proselytize.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I think that's so helpful for even people who've been following you for a long time to hear, because there's a lot of projection around a kind of sustained confidence that I think is false. And I think it's really powerful to frame it as this is a decision one makes again and again every day to jump. And it really does feel like that. I mean, even this, it's like it gets posted on the internet I'm sure there's moments you disagree with what you said, or you're like, I wish I could have said that more elegantly or more succinctly. And I think there's something really like, yeah, I just love the person it's turning me into that's like a little bit less. I think you have to forgive yourself. It makes you forgive others for saying something that you're like, you should have said it this way. And it's like, well, you're in your sweatpants, like watching that, like what? Like there's no, I think I spent a lot of my life like unconsciously hiding because it's much safer. You kind of want to avoid ridicule. And I'm not saying everyone should be a public speaker. I don't think that makes sense. But I think it's a healthy thing for people to try, because it kind of puts things in perspective when you're like judging other people so freely. Because it's totally different when it's lights, camera, action, and you're just doing the best you can. That said, I think you and I are examples of people who like show up prepared and really try. I think I do have an issue with podcasting as a field right now where it does feel like a lot of chatting. Yeah. And it's like, why are these voices elevated as experts? Or like, why are, I think that is a tricky thing for me. And I'm on the tendency to like over prepare, but I do think it's an act of respect for the listeners, not just for the guest or for, but it's really like, is this worth anyone's time? Like, I think that's a good question for everyone to ask.
That feels very Scorpion to me. And again, I'm basing everything on like one close friend. Sorry, I'm like outing everything about this man's life, but he secretly likes anything. My observation is that he is holding himself to such a high standard. Yeah. That it becomes a kind of a judgment about other people. Yeah. And like, even if he weren't so prepared and didn't hold himself to such a high standard, he would be exceptional as is. But that kind of like preparedness, the preparedness and desire to present as yourself, which is a good thing, can become a little morphed into a sort of
compulsion. It's like a OCD thing. Yeah.
Yes. And holding yourself back from opportunities and putting yourself out there. And also then having some simmering resentment for everyone else who is putting themselves out there that isn't even as good as you, but it still doesn't free you from your own self-imposed constraint.
Yeah, that's a really good read. I mean, I do feel like I think once you start doing a thing, and my show is what we call Always On, which is a weekly show. I do think that's been trained out of me because it's just too fast to have that kind of run my life, that kind of like perfectionism and judgment run my life. But I definitely resonate with a younger version of myself that was like, why doesn't talent rise? Or why are we, and I'm not in that as much, but I do think it's a good, of all of the like compulsions one can possess, I think that's a good one to have in the US, where like the anti-intellectualism and the like lack of rigor in our discourse is really not helping us. Like, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. But the Leo in me is like, screw it. If they have a podcast, I'm going to have a podcast. Like, I have the same kind of observation. But my response is like, well, if they're going to do it, I might as well do it. Like, what I'm challenging myself right now is like to not be jealous of people who are having successes in different places. Totally. But to just do it. Like,
yes. And I think that's 100% where I'm at too. Like, I think listen to your envy. If your envy is trying to communicate something, it's probably a repressed desire that you need to investigate and take accountability for. Yeah. But I also think it doesn't have to be jealousy or envy, but I think it can be like an important critique that you, again, to your point, what better way to live your critique by doing something and taking a risk instead of sitting on the sidelines safely being like, and that's where Virgo, Cap, and Scorpio can be like the coven of like judge. We're like there's so many good memes of like Virgo, Cap, and Scorpio women being like, on the sidelines judging. And to your point, that's no way to live. But I do think in this moment right now, I think that Scorpios can offer a really important lens to see the world. Like some of the themes astrologically this year are like when things get confusing with disinformation or misinformation, I think Scorpio can cut through and say, like, how do we create some rubrics, or how do we create agreements around how to like authenticate information, or how do we bring back media literacy to help young people make sense of or interrogate or question what they're reading without creating some like scary rubric of like, this is truth. That's not what I'm saying. But how do we encourage young people and adults to have that kind of awareness to question what we are being presented with as truth, which is really propaganda usually. So that's more the Scorpio lens that I think is actually, and the Virgo discernment that I think we need right now, where it's an extremely confusing time to parse through what's true, what's not true. With AI especially, but even before AI, I think, paid media conglomeration became, it's really challenging for the average American to know what's true or not with reportage and stuff. So I think I'm more, and obviously I'm a Scorpio, so I'm biased, but I think we should be borrowing more from that type of lens right now to cut through all of the noise, because it's a lot out there.
It is. You have me Googling what's Brie Weiss's birthday.
Yeah, that's me all
March
the time on podcasts.
March,
I'm like,
April.
What is the birth chart of? Sometimes it's wrong though. So fact check.
Well, she's an Aries, but as we've learned today, knowing her sun sign is not enough to make any kind of conclusions. Maybe you'll
it's important though. It's important. It's
on
important.
the show sometime. Can you imagine? LOL. I would love to see what you do with Barry on Stars and Stars with Issa. Issa, you have been so generous with your time.
Of
I think
course.
it's evident that I could talk to you forever. I hope we get a chance to talk sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Whatever you come up with to be a forum to also bring men into the conversation and talk about what the heck is going on with the state of our world and our relationship with each other. I would love to listen to it whenever it happens and be a part of it if there's ever an opportunity to do so. You're an absolute delight. I know everyone who's listening to this is going to want to come over and hear more of you and your work over at Stars and Stars. Where can they find you on the internet and beyond?
Yes. Well, I was also going to say this for season 2. It's season 2 of my show, Stars and Stars with Issa. I am having a lot more men on the show, and we do talk about some of these themes on the show. So definitely stay tuned. It's every Tuesday we drop on YouTube right now for Futuro Media. So definitely look up Futuro Media's YouTube channel. We also have it wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're an audio purist and you want to listen to it, we do a scored version there. It really helps if people leave comments, rate and review, because I love continuing the conversation in the YouTube comments. And you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok or X at Stars and Stars with Issa. That's ISA. And yeah, please listen, tune in. I'm really available. So hit me up if you have feedback, or as long as it's civil, be nice. I am sensitive.
These are the Bad Faith audience I was going to say they're a very nice audience. They're a very good audience, and they're only mean to people who deserve it.
I know, but I thought part of me was like, is this a risk for her to have me on? Because astrology with this crowd, I was just like, I don't know how it would go.
No, I did. Even though I joke about there being a mini rebellion when I did this before, it was half the audience still loved it. And there are people who rebel against me every single week because,
that's a love
we're
language.
A cantankerous crew. Yeah, we can handle it. Here at Bad Faith,
I love that.
We know how to disagree and still be in community with each other.
Stay skeptical, my friends. I'm a fan of skepticism, y'all. So stay skeptical. That's a big part of faith.
That is a big part of faith. Thank you for saying that, Issa. Thank you for spending so much time with us today. You guys all know that if you want an extra episode of Bad Faith Podcast every week, you can subscribe at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast and get an additional Monday episode. I'm so glad everyone's going to get to listen to this free Thursday episode because it really has been one of my favorites. Take care. And as always, keep the faith. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.